have, first, of course, you had the Supreme Court revoke women's constitutional privacy rights. Then you have them saying to our African-American brothers and sisters, it really doesn't matter your history. It doesn't matter that you were, brought here as slaves. It doesn't matter that you were not permitted to accumulate property or wealth or pass it on to your children so your future generations could begin to catch up. It doesn't matter that all public accommodations were separate but equal until 1954. And we all know damn well they weren't equal, and they frankly still aren't. It doesn't matter that you, to this day, suffer all of the consequences of the kind of deeply entrenched systemic racism here in America. What you're going to have to do now is you're going to have to compete on a level playing field with all of the other populations who had absolutely none of those adversities in their history. So have fun with that, friends. That's disgusting. It's despicable. Frankly, it is the Supreme Court cementing racism and the effects of racism into American society. So that is my continued thought on that. With respect to the LGBTQ plus ruling, plain and simple, here's what the Supreme Court has done. They have said, if you cloak your prejudice, your racism, or not your racism, your intolerance and your hatred of others, if you cloak it in religion or freedom of artistic expression, you can discriminate against anyone you damn well please. That's what the Supreme Court has announced. They are sending our nation down the toilet. The silver lining, though, Jody, is you think we were motivated to vote in November of 2020.
Exactly.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Glenn, I've had a lot of friends of mine after the website ruling say, okay, the Supreme Court says that we can discriminate even if you're a protected class. So I can if you walk into my business as an evangelical Christian, I can refuse business to you.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, so that is an eye for an eye approach, and everybody goes blind. Here's the problem with that, Chris. First of all, you're dead right. You and I and Jody and everybody else can now discriminate if we claim it's religious-based discrimination or artistic expression-based discrimination. But what do we do if we do that? We are legitimizing the court decision that says this is an okay thing to do. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to fight against this court decision with my vote and with every other tool that we have in our toolbox.
Okay. Yeah, I just asked that because I wanted to know if what these what my friends of mine were saying were true or not. And I guess
it sounds
true,
legal, yeah.
But it's just not good practice.
No, it's dumb business.
Yeah,
it's dumb business. Now, with that particular case, since it was a hypothetical, is there a way for that to go bye-bye?
Well, the good news is there is, Jody. There's what's called a petition for reconsideration. I believe the Supreme Court rules give the litigant 45 days from the time of the opinion to petition for reconsideration. I have to believe I guess it's the Attorney General for the state of Colorado is drafting that petition for reconsideration as we speak because it was a made up case. The Constitution requires a case or controversy. There was no case and there was no controversy. So let's hope the Attorney General for Colorado petitions for reconsideration.
Let's do that for sure. Now, it looks like the guy that was threatening the Obamas is going to be released.
It sounds like it. Yeah.
It just seems... I mean, I don't know the law, I guess.
After, I guess, Trump published his address?
Yeah, Donald Trump published Obama's address, doxed him, and this guy went to the House and then surrendered. But why do you think they might release him? Is it because it's his first offense? I mean.
So here's the thing. There is a standard for detaining somebody pending trial, and it is that person is either a danger to the community or is a flight risk. And the prosecutors have to prove that in court by clear and convincing evidence. That's a much higher standard than probable cause to arrest. It's obviously a lower standard than proof beyond a reasonable doubt to convict, but it's a pretty high evidentiary standard. I've had to prove it hundreds of times. So I assume, and I am now learning from you all, thank you for breaking the news to me, that this guy, Taylor Taranto, is apparently going to be released. I assume the judge decided there wasn't clear and convincing evidence that he posed a danger to others.
Okay.
I don't know how that can be when Donald Trump posts his address. This guy reposts it on his social media, arms himself with 2 guns, 400 rounds of ammunition, a machete, and then heads to Obama's home to get after him. I don't understand how he is not a danger to others. But here's the thing. If the trial judge, the first judge to make this decision, got it wrong, then the prosecutors can appeal it, and hopefully they will. And hopefully this guy, who's an insurrectionist, mind you, at the time he was wanted for his crimes on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol. This is a guy that should be detained, at least based on what I've seen publicly reported.
And what they're saying is he might be released before trial unless prosecutors bring more serious charges against him in the next week. He brought weapons to an ex-president's home. That to me is dangerous. I don't see Judge Zia Faruqi.
Zia Faruqi. I know
you.
Judge Faruqi well. I used to work with him. And here's what will happen. I predict that the prosecutors will very quickly bring a superseding indictment with more charges if the evidence supports it, or they will appeal. So Judge Faruqi is not a full judge. He's a magistrate judge, and it can be appealed to a full judge. So I have a feeling that's what we may see next.
Because apparently right now...
And let me add, Jody, Judge Faruqi, not just because I know him personally, he is an excellent jurist. So I will have to scrutinize his opinion to see why he reached that conclusion.
He hasn't quite reached it, according to this reporting. Basically, the problem is so far Toronto is only being charged with misdemeanors, and that's, I think, why the judge is saying, well, if it's only misdemeanors, I got no choice, correct? I mean,
more to come. There's more to come, I'm quite sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Walt Nauta finally was arraigned. He finally got a Florida-based attorney. Why did they give him so much deference to get down there to do that? I mean...
So the judge tries to be accommodating to a defendant because the Constitution provides that you have a right to counsel. Ordinarily, that means if you have the means to hire a lawyer, you get some leeway in finding the lawyer, hiring them, and then bringing them into your case. Felt like Nauta was playing games, probably because whatever lawyer he hires is probably going to be hired with Donald Trump's money, and Donald Trump is going to expect that lawyer to do Donald Trump's bidding rather than Nauta's bidding. Here's the thing, though. I've been in court many times when a defendant appeared without a lawyer, and the judge said, Mr. Attorney in the back of the courtroom, I'm asking you to stand in for purposes of the arraignment until this defendant retains his own lawyer. That happens all the time. And it feels like push came to shove in one way or another. Walt was going to be arraigned yesterday. And today I'm actually doing an hour-long podcast on the art of flipping guys like Walt Nauta, because I've flipped more people than I could possibly count in my 30 years as a prosecutor. This is not bragging, but I was called king of the cooperators. But cooperators are enormously difficult and challenging witnesses to deal with. Why? Because they're criminals. You have to clean them up. You have to get the truth out of them. You have to corroborate them before you can ever put them on the stand to testify about the crimes of others. So we're going to go into the art of flipping on today's Justice Matters podcast.
Nice. That sounds great, because he was questioned, and then part of his testimony was used in the indictment against Donald Trump, but he also lied. And so do you think they're going to even bother trying to get him as a cooperating witness? Because it doesn't sound like he'd get a good deal anymore.
Every cooperating witness starts out lying. I mean, Jody, none of these guys walk in the minute they start talking to law enforcement and say, yeah, you got me. Let me be completely forthcoming about all my crimes. Never.
But didn't they offer him a proffer? Didn't they start talking to him about a deal and then he said, no, thank you? Or...
Oh, I have a feeling they talked to him long and hard trying to develop him as a cooperating witness. But here's the good news. Often when these guys want to go hard, then we say, okay, then let me promise you what will happen. You're going to be indicted for crimes that will carry decades and decades in prison. And then we're going to talk again. Now he is in that second posture
Right.
where he's been indicted. And you know what? It has a way of getting somebody's attention when they say that they see their name on the wrong side of the V, United States versus Walt Nauta and Donald Trump. Now, some people, let me add, will take what's called a soldier's plea. What's a soldier's plea? Walt Nauta may want to go down with the Donald Trump ship, in which case he will say, you can take me to trial and convict me of everything, or maybe I'll save you the trouble. I'll walk into court and I'll plead guilty to everything, and you can't stop me, and I will never talk to
and
you.
Weisselberg
We
did
have
that.
We call that a soldier's plea. Well, Weisselberg actually did half a plea. He was playing games, still trying to help Donald Trump. So often, you know, in gang and RICO cases that I've handled, I've had guys come in and say, look, Mr. Kirschner, I get it. I'm done. I'm dead and stinking. I'm going to die in prison. What I'm not going to do is flip on the organization, because then I'll be dead inside the Bureau of Prisons. I would rather live the rest of my life in the Bureau of Prisons, not having flipped, but at least not looking at who's going to shank me in the back every day.
Yeah, that makes. I understand that. And one last thing, Trump can be deposed in the Peter Strzok lawsuit.
Yep. That broke overnight.
Yeah, that broke overnight. Jackson wrote in her brief order, it was Judge Amy Berman Jackson. She said, given the limited nature of the deposition that has been ordered and the fact that the former president's schedule appears to be able to accommodate other civil litigation that he's initiated, so why not?
Exactly.
DOJ sought to block him from being deposed because other people have already testified. But I like the fact that she's ruled that he's now got to talk about Peter Strzok, who has a decent lawsuit, I think.
Yeah. So, what I predict he will do is plead the fifth. Because just because you've been ordered to sit for a deposition, you still have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination.
Absolutely.
And we all see how badly it ended up when Donald Trump didn't plead the fifth in the E. Jean Carroll deposition. He made an absolute jackass of himself and helped that jury conclude that he did sexually batter and defame E. Jean Carroll. So this time I suspect we'll see him plead the fifth.
Yeah, well, that's he's really bad under depositions. He's just the worst witness. He's just terrible. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Glenn. Have a lovely, lovely weekend.
Yeah.
And you'll see Stephanie hopefully next week.
Thanks. Our well wishes go out to Stephanie and her mom. Thanks, Jody.
Absolutely. Right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Glenn.
Okay. It is 48 minutes after the hour. We'll be right back on the Stephanie Miller Show.
Good morning, Barb McQuaid.
Well, good morning. That'll wake me up.
Yeah.
Well, we always have to start with Wolverines. But anyway.
Thank you.
Also, I totally forgot your husband is from my hometown of Lockport, New York.
Lockport, New York. Yep, got a chance to visit there this weekend. What a beautiful town.
And all my friends from high school friends from Lockport were here out for a wedding.